First amp we put up was the model 1962 HW hand-wired reissue of the Bluesbreaker. So, and of course you couldn't help but want to put a burst into it, and handily enough we had not one but two bursts. So
as luck would have it.
So what was your impressions of that? Because that is a classic combination, isn't it?
Yeah, I think out of all the ones we played, I think that was probably my favourite. Just in terms of a little bit of kind of give and sag and compression, just made it a very enjoyable experience to play it. See, I think the one thing we didn't do actually, which I wish we'd done, is jump the channels to see how close we could get in that respect. But just a thoroughly enjoyable amp to play. You know, it saturates beautifully, and like I said, it wasn't too visceral. Stood in front of the 4x12s, I think, with the super lead was just sorry, we're getting into the other territories now, aren't we? But just a visceral experience. Whereas there was something very musical and very sort of forgiving about the Bluesbreaker, which was thoroughly enjoyable.
So when you go to something like the Bluesbreaker, what are the differences you notice between the sound of that and the way that responds, and what the Marshall kind of sound came to be, maybe post-90s?
I think, like you said, it's definitely identifiable as being derived from that kind of basement sort of circuitry. I think for me that's kind of more tonally kind of where I sit a little bit more. I think having kind of gone through that youth thing of being a huge Slash fan and chasing that kind of higher gain Marshall, I think it's something I found my way back to a little bit. It's a little bit more agricultural, I guess, the earlier kind of Marshall sounds, a little bit more kind of ragged, a little bit more rough around the edges, less mid-focused, I would say. I think agricultural is probably the best word I could use to describe it. It's a little bit more kind of ragged, and there's a kind of real enjoyment to be had in that. I think it's if you compare that to something like the JCM 800 we played later, that's so kind of arrow-pointed, kind of mid-focused sort of sound that it does that. Whereas I think there's probably a level of versatility, I think, in the Bluesbreaker, which isn't necessarily there in the later stuff.
Lesser talked about that Marshalls can have a lovely clean tone. Everybody says, oh, Fenders have a great clean tone, which they do. What's your take on that in relation to something like the Bluesbreaker?
I think that was probably my favourite sound with the Bluesbreaker, was getting it to a point where it was very slightly on the edge of breakup and just rolling the volume back on the guitar. Especially with Handley, having a guitar like this around, you know, it's part of its charm is to just be able to be dynamic and be kind of totally responsive and dynamically responsive to what you're playing with. And I think, you know, it's something I've been kind of had my eyes open to a little bit more in recent years, that Marshall clean tone. You know, for years when I was younger, it was kind of like, well, why would you use a Marshall for a clean tone? That's not what it's kind of known for. But then, you know, forgetting that to a certain point, it was kind of, that was all it did, really, you know, and pushing it to a point past that was kind of seen as wrong almost, I guess. You look, the kind of Grief Clapton went through to get his tone on the Bluesbreaker record, you know. So there's a hell of a lot of kind of legroom to be had out of the headroom. Just a lot of fun to be had, you know, with this kind of shades of grey up until the point where it is breaking up, at which point all hell breaks loose. So.
Played both a burst and a nice Strat, vintage Strat into the Bluesbreaker. Do you automatically gravitate to the hotter guitar to drive it, or what's the difference from your point of view?
I think that was kind of what I was expecting, was to plug the Les Paul into it and feel at home. I actually probably marginally enjoy playing the Strat into a little bit more. Just because you have got a little bit more headroom, it's not pushing it so much, and you can kind of, especially with the Strat tuned down half a step, we're getting that kind of slightly swampy kind of Jimmy thing going on, which was thoroughly enjoyable. I think that was probably, out of the two, that was what I kind of would gravitate towards.